Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast Beyond the Next Chapter with Whitney Clark. I am your host, Whitney Clark. I am the weekend anchor and reporter for Good Morning Arizona on Arizona's Family, and this is the first episode of this new podcast, and I am so excited. I am an avid reader, and we really wanted to create a space for all walks of readers, whether you like romance, historical fiction, nonfiction. We want to help you find your next great read. We're also going to talk to some of our favorite authors. And as the title implies, we're going to delve in to some really important topics, including how we can improve literacy rates in our community. We're going to talk about some fun stuff like silent book clubs, how you can find more time to read, and how to get your kids to love to read as well. So I am so excited to have my first two guests. That includes Samantha Mears with the Maricopa County Library District. And we also have my dad, Jeff. Thank you guys for being here.
You're welcome. We're so excited.
This is so fun. And this is sort of an episode about my reading origin story. So I was a reader when I was a little kid. I loved books, and a huge part of that started because my dad would read to us every night. So we wanted to have him on to talk a little bit about those fond memories and those early days of reading. So I remember reading basically every night before we went to bed. What are your sort of memories of that? What were our favorite books? Did we like to read?
You and your sister, love to read. We love to get in bed, on my bed with you on either side of me, and we would pick books, and I'd let you pick books. We started with Dr. Seuss, The Hungry Caterpillar, all the classics of the time back then, and we just lay there. Now, part of my motivation, of course, was to get you away from the TV, and get you to unwind and get you ready for bed. Mm-hmm. But we always read, and I'd let you pick, and Dr. Seuss was a big favorite early on.
Was it difficult to get us away from the TV, or were we pretty easy to get into reading?
It wasn't hard. I think initially there was some resistance, but once you got used to the habit of reading and all that, you really seemed to both take to it and really enjoy it. And we would read until you guys fell asleep. We'd read for quite a while sometimes.
And it's funny. It's really true about habits, because that still is my habit. I basically read now until I fall asleep.
And then came the trips when you guys were able to read. You started reading to me. Oh. And I'd fall asleep sometimes with you guys reading. But we would make trips to the library and to Borders.
Yeah.
And I did not say what kind of books that you needed to today. Mm-hmm. You had complete freedom on what you chose. And you chose, and it made it a very exciting thing. You guys look forward to going to the bookstore and to the library, particularly when we were visiting your grandmother, my mom, down in Newport. The Newport Library was something that I know you still remember. Your sister still remember. It was a big, beautiful library. You just loved going there.
Yeah, and I still do.
I was going to say, do you work for the library? Because you just did all the right talking points.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he moonlights as a librarian as well.
No, I'm kidding.
So it's kind of interesting how when I take a step back and look, I really developed some of these habits when I was a kid. And one of the reasons why we want to bring on Samantha as well is because she does some really great work in terms of getting books out to kids in the community and also encouraging reading. And you have a son of your own too.
I do,
who's
yes.
2.5.
2.5 years old, yes. And we are a reading family. I read my first book to him, which was The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So I love that you mentioned that. When he was truly 2 or 3 days old. Yeah. We were at home, and I have a picture of it. I was so excited to start reading to him.
So in 20 years, when he has a podcast, you'll invite us on his podcast.
I think he might be a librarian, to be honest. He loves books so much.
And so there is some science, though, behind reading to your kids, making it a habit. You guys have something we've talked to you about called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so research really shows, we've all heard how important early literacy and language development is, of course. I think one of the biggest reasons we do 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten kindergarten is because, and this is a bit of an overwhelming number, 80% of your child's brain development happens within the first 3 years of their life. 80%. It can be a little overwhelming as a parent or a caregiver. That's a lot of pressure, right? So 1,000 books before kindergarten really developed out of that research. Not only 1,000 days is about 3 years, right? So, which is great. So you have about 5 to 6 years before kindergarten. So not only, is that research important, but 1,000 books before kindergarten is attainable. So if you actually read one book a day, you're going to read 1,000 books in actually a little under a year.
Wow.
So imagine then, you can keep doing the numbers in many ways, but if you read 10 books a week, it will take about 2 years to read 1,000 books. So it's really attainable, even if you're just reading one book a day, to really make that impact on your child's, literacy development and language development in those first 3 years.
And it can be the same book.
Yes, it can be the same book. So the program itself, 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, is built to make this fun. You get to, at different milestones of how many books you read, you get different prizes. Stickers, pencils, bags, fun little things kids like. And so that really incentivizes you and makes it fun. You get to go to the library and pick out your prizes, but it's all online. So you can be at home and be tracking these books. You can read the same book more than once. That counts. You can read board books. 1,000 books might sound intimidating, but think about a board book. It can take, a minute, 2 minutes to really get through that board book. Okay. So we try to make this attainable and fun for you.
Can 35-year-olds apply for this as well?
Not for 1,000 books before kindergarten, but for the summer reading program.
Okay.
That's for all ages.
And you also have a 2.5-year-old, so you're kind of in the same boat my dad was.
Yeah.
We won't age ourselves here, so we won't say how many years ago that was.
I think we're similar.
Has it been difficult? Because, my dad, as you mentioned, tried to get us away from the TV, and that was before we had phones, that was before we had tablets, and a million other technology devices to distract kids. Is it hard to get him to enjoy an actual book?
So, I think it really, anyone who knows a 2-year-old or 2.5-year-old and has spent time with them, some days are more difficult than others. For instance, last night we were able to read one book before bed. He just wasn't having it. But, the night before we read 20. So I think that's really important. Just remember, even if you're reading one, that's okay. And I think your dad made a really good point, and something we encourage a lot is, let them choose what they want to read. Especially as your kids get older. My 2.5-year-old is really only just starting to be picky and choose the books he wants to read. As they get older, they're not going to necessarily want mom and dad picking what they read. That's okay. They don't need to read a science book or a math book. Let them read the Guinness Book of World Records. Let them read Dr. Seuss. Let them read for fun. It's about entertainment. It's important. That's just as important as reading the more, science books or math books. So let them pick them out.
And I think a lot of people that I know, they stopped enjoying reading when they were in high school, because in high school is when you're assigned books that, quite frankly, can be a little bit of a drag, that you don't want to be forced to read something. They're books that can be kind of difficult to grasp. I think the only book in high school that I liked was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, and I still enjoy that book. Did you guys have the same experience in high school? Did you kind of go through that rut where you're like, I don't want to read because now it's something that I have to do for school?
It was a burden. It became a burden of some sort. Although I did read In Cold Blood, and that was a page turner as far as I was concerned. It was well written. That was not one of the ones that I did not want to read. But I found it hard, and in college as well, reading some of these and trying to get the message. It doesn't seem like I got the message, and it makes you feel dumb, instead of something positive. So it's more fun to pick what you want to read.
Yeah. I think we're also really lucky to live, we might be dealing with screen time and all that, but we're also really lucky to live in a time where you can get ebooks and audiobooks. And so the convenience helps. Having a 2.5-year-old, it's hard for me to sit down and read books. Oftentimes I do it before bed as well, and I literally fall asleep within 5 minutes. I'm so tired. So audiobooks have been a huge lifesaver for me. I pop in my earbuds, I can do chores, I can do laundry, and so it does help me get through books. When you're driving to work, I listen to them. In the library now, you can check all those books out just like a physical book. So, I have a lot of audiobooks that I'm getting for free
Yeah.
thanks to the library. So.
I did check out an audiobook from the library. It was Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book. I think I was on the waiting list for like months but that to me is, I love seeing waiting lists for books and audiobooks, because then it shows a lot of people are interested. I mean, I think also Britney Spears' memoir, there were like 1,000 people in line for that. So yes, sometimes it might take a while, but it's free, first of all.
Yes.
And then second of all, to me, I love to know that so many people are interested in something like that, for sure.
There's also a ton of books that are available with no wait list. It just really depends on the popularity and the app. We have 2 different apps you can use, Libby and Hoopla, and Hoopla never has waits. But again, you might not get that first new release book. You might have to wait a little bit. We also have apps that are specifically for kids. So we have a book called Tumble app. Tumble Book. It's not our app. It's Tumble Book. We make it available for our library card holders, and there are ebooks, audiobooks, and read-along like videos that you can check out with your kids. So if going to the library is tough, maybe you have a lot of young kids and it feels overwhelming to go into a public space right now, you can do everything from home through our online or our library apps. You can also browse for books online and have a librarian literally put them onto a shelf for you and pull up and do curbside pickup, and they'll bring them to your. So we have a lot of access is the key here. The library has a lot of access for you, however you want to read.
I fell out of the habit, but while I lived away from a close proximity from a library, I would download ebooks, and that was great. You just check in and down into your tablet it goes, and into my iPad in my case, and you could read and return it. It was great.
It's great. It's a great service.
And it's also good. I mean, that's for me. I used to be one of those people that was for a while, I was kind of anti-Kindle, anti-ebook, because I was like, I'm reading a hard copy of a book because it's not the same thing. And then when I started traveling more, I got a Kindle, and I still do kind of a mix of both. And it sounds so silly to say, but if you're in the habit of reading before bed, a Kindle is so much easier, because you can have the lights off, and then you can just like fall asleep and be already like laying down and not sitting up and holding it. And it sounds so silly to be like, oh, books are so inconvenient that you have to hold them. But it is a super nice option as well. And I would think for authors, they would probably like that too, because just the access is so much greater.
And if your kids are really into their tablet, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of us have tablets for our children now at very young ages. That might be a way to, get them to actually feel excitement about a book in a different way. That they can download it on their tablet, pick it out, check it out with their library card, and then have it right there. So it might be just another way to make reading fun with your kids.
Does it seem like there's a bigger interest in reading now? Like, is it becoming kind of cool and popular again?
I have always been one to believe that reading is cool and popular. Although I will say high school it was difficult, like you were saying earlier. But I think we still have a ton of people coming to the library. I think we still have a lot of people, checking out books. And I have heard, though, that the younger generations are going to the library more. I just was reading an article about that. The Gen Xers, and is it Gen X?
Gen Z.
Gen Z, thank you. Gen X. The Gen Zs are actually coming to the library more frequently than the millennials. So I think that's really exciting. So maybe that really is a trend, and it's a little more hip to be a reader.
Hopefully. I think with the pandemic is when I started picking up a habit more, because we didn't have as much to do. We were staying home a lot. So that's really when I kicked it up a notch. But again, it's always been something I enjoyed. Why was it important for you as a parent to get us to read? Was it just like the, distraction of it, or, going to bed, or was there other like reasons you thought, okay, this is something that we should make a habit?
Well, it was a number of things. It was a combination of those things, really. Getting you away from the television was a motivator. Winding you down was a motivator, but also hopefully instilling, not envisioning what has happened, mind you, but your great love of reading, but to establish that and to make it a habit and hopefully make it fun. Because there's a small window when your children really want to do what you think, they'll buy into what you're selling them, and if you hit them at that age and you do it well, not that I did it well, but just try to make it fun and no big deal. not take it too seriously.
I think you did a very good job.
I did too.
So, and I like what you were saying too about building the habit. It can feel overwhelming if you're not a reading family to start. I mean, building habits are hard no matter what you're doing, from if you're trying to build an exercise habit or whatever it is. So just start small. Maybe choose one night a week that you're going to try and read for 5 minutes. And, that's good. That's what it's going to take to build that reading habit. So.
Any other advice for parents? Because we know people lead really busy lives these days. It seems like even more so. We know access can be really difficult, which is why the library is so great. Any sort of final thoughts or advice for parents or just anyone listening about getting involved in reading, getting their kids involved?
Well, I think an important aspect was how we did it. We laid on the bed. We were physically close. It was an intimate time. Which conveys caring, and a positive attitude and a connection, because everybody wants to feel connected. And I think that's as important as anything.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Because that's how I feel. It's such a special time. I think, some advice I would love to give is your kids seeing you read is important as well. So model reading, even if you're reading a magazine, but let them also see you reading for fun. I think that's really important as well. Just reading together, but also if they see you as they're growing up, you're reading books, you're taking time, giving yourself that me time, allowing yourself to read books, that's just as important as well.
I do remember the LA Times, the John Grisham books on the table as a kid. So it's kind of funny, all the little things habits we build when we're young, looking back, like some of the things my dad was saying I hadn't ever even thought about. Like, I still like the bookstore, I still like the library. So it's really amazing to kind of have that retrospective and how those habits are built.
I was reminded yesterday too that we used to read the funnies.
Oh my gosh, the funnies!
We run the Sunday. We read the Sunday funnies together.
Yes,
I totally remember that.
Me too. I remember that, and I have to tell you, graphic novels are so popular right now. They're so much fun for kids. It reminds me a lot. We used to read the Sunday funnies as well, and it was always in color. It was really exciting. Yeah,
cool. Yeah. Well, how did I do? First podcast.
I think you did great.
You knocked it out of the park, sweetheart.
You got some great guests too. How are you going to top this?
That's what really made it. You two. And it was so important for me to have, my dad talking about, how I fell in love with reading, and then you also with your son in the library. And the library is just such a great resource. And we know, books can be expensive too.
They are. And I do just want to remind all of our Maricopa County residents that there's 66 libraries around the county. So you can get a library card for every single one of those. If you're a Maricopa, no cost to you. So we have public libraries, tribal libraries. We have an Air Force Base library. There are so many opportunities to visit a library out here. We're really lucky.
Yeah. Free books. Does it get much better than that? I don't think so. Can we go to the bookstore or the library after this?
He's
like, yes.
I love the smell of a bookstore, right?
Who
it's
doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.